Welcome back to the Kevin and Jason Show. I'm your host, Kevin Messeri, here for a roster breakdown after a really good preseason game against the Indianapolis Colts. We're going to get into it today. We're going to start talking about 5 players each that we thought were really big movers yesterday in the game. We're going to probably talk about roster differences between this and last year, kind of where they're at in 2019 to the 18. Wrap this up, and we'll talk about a little bit going forward, getting into that next week's show and as with that practice down in Carolina. Jason, how you doing today?
I'm good after yesterday. You can't take much out of it, but with the things that you hope that are positive are that you win the game, that players look good, a certain amount of them that you're going to be relying on, that there's going to be competition at positions, and that we're relatively injury free. And I think that we accomplished all of those in that game and looked pretty good at it.
Yeah, I mean, I think after McDermott spoke today, I think there was a couple of little nicks and things, but I don't think anyone came out pretty banged up at all. You have Dawson Knox and Tyler Kroft practicing today, at least through like a little bit of like walkthroughs. I think Mitch Marsh is still doing his agility thing, so he can't be too far away. We'll see what comes up there. But other than that, I think there was a couple. Zay Jones went out after getting cracked, and
He's already
Russell
been cleared. So.
Yep. He was already cleared, and his series were already kind of over by the time he was cleared. And then Russell Bodine, I think, was in concussion protocol. Maybe concussion protocol after that bad snap. But anyways, He went through concussion protocol, and he's in there now. So nothing really too bad. Couple people resting today, but should be relatively healthy going into Carolina, and that's kind of all we can ask as they reach down there. So wanted to start talking about 5 players that we, kind of each liked what they did and kind of maybe notable moves and notable things that they did in the game yesterday. We'll start with you, Jason. What do you have at the top, or it doesn't need to be in order, but give us your first big mover or big winner of yesterday.
I think Devin Singletary is going to be a pretty popular one if he continues to go like this through the preseason. He got the lion's share of the carries and the playing time at running back yesterday. People have a little bit of doubts of McCoy. McCoy didn't get a chance to show himself in that game because he didn't play. Frank Gore played sparingly, and Singletary's main competition for running back playing time. I mean, Singletary's going to make the team. Yeldon might not, but Yeldon's definitely the playing time competition there, and Yeldon got yanked from the game and didn't come back after his fumble. So Singletary looked good, 9 for 27 on the ground, showed some really good moves. I was, you can see maybe the lack of athleticism a little bit, but he's got such great vision and just has like every running back technique skill that you really want. And there was a play that I thought around the end that maybe a step faster he could have gotten by, but he also might just be a patient runner, and I think that was really exemplified in the game. 9 for 27 for 3 carry isn't exactly, a groundbreaking game, but you definitely saw what his skills were on display. He also had 3 for 21 in the receiving game. He took this bullet in the middle of the field from Barkley, pretty short down the field that he was able to catch, and that was important because Josh Allen still doesn't know how to throw. He doesn't know how to take the velocity off the screen and, under 5-yard game. So it was good to see that he was able to do that. And it was a little bit, other than the athleticism, it was a question just because they didn't really throw to him much at Florida Atlantic. They gave him the ball, 700 plus times. But the receiving game was something that he was questioned about. A lot of people at the team said that they felt confident in his abilities to do that, and he showed that in the game. So I thought it was overall positive game 1 for number 40.
I think so too. I think we'll stay along the lines of the offense to get into someone that I wasn't really sure what was going to happen, but was really a key part of some of the games last year and Josh Allen's resurgence in the end of the last year and a couple wins. And that's Isaiah McKenzie was the top of my list. I thought he did pretty much anything you can ask for him in his time yesterday. He just seems to be better version of Ray McCloud. He seems to be, really everything you would think Ray McCloud would come in and do. The practice, Ray McCloud does this in practice, but, McKenzie comes there and does it in a game. I thought he was solid all around. He was getting open, which was huge. He was one of the only receivers getting open last year. But now, he's fighting for a roster spot. Really, what was in the top 3 receivers last year. And this tells you how deep this roster is. We'll get into that next a little bit next segment. But 2 for 62, targeted couple targets, 38 yards was his long. He was making plays in the return game, with his 3 punt returns for 25 yards, long of 12. So a pretty good 8.3 average for a punt returner. I mean, it's tough to see. Or really tough to say that he didn't really put himself into consideration to not, especially with his relatively good contract and a couple of the other factors, just being so versatile. I don't know how you keep him off the roster right now, Jason. So he would be, I think, a really big winner. He shocked me, kind of picked up where he left off. So a lot of people thought he was kind of a GOAT, in the embedded series. But come to show, doing a little research, he has actually been called by Matt Barkley the funniest guy in the room. So I think there's a lot of joking going on with him that maybe we took more serious with the kind of the annoying stuff he was doing in embedded. So I think he
got a bad 10 seconds there.
Yeah.
Like whatever.
Right. Nothing more than that. So he's, I mean, I think to me, he was right at the top of my list for the game yesterday.
Yeah, and really, if they're considering that McLeod's going to be the 6th guy, I just think he's the athletic version of him, and more nuanced and veteran version of him. And I feel like that's going to show eventually. Maybe if he is a knucklehead, they will weigh that against each other because they like McLeod's attitude. But I think at this point, he's just ahead of him. I'll go to my number 2 player, and I really liked what I saw out of Daryl Johnson. We always considered him sort of the 6th DN there, 5th DN there, competing with a final 4th DN with Mike Love, who also I thought had a pretty good game at Yarbrough, who had a decent game after really not being shown much in sort of in training camp and being mentioned a lot. I thought all 3 of them had a pretty good game, but I thought Daryl Johnson showed himself as a very explosive athlete. I don't know how much of a leg up being a 7th round pick gets you for the Bills, because we seem to cut or get rid of a lot of late round draft picks. But I think that if you were going to take him as the 4th guy, or I said on Twitter, maybe you keep a 5th DN or a 9th defensive lineman just because he was a guy you drafted. And I just think that the likeliness of him being kept as a 5th defensive end is way more likely than one of the 2 other, journeyman defensive ends. I think you might want to use one roster spot and say, we're going to sit on this potential. We like his athleticism. He really had moves. He was saw a swim there. He had the play that he really disrupted, where he kind of went and stunned it across the line. It was just a really good showing for him, for a guy that really didn't get a ton of talk in training camp so far. And it's possible, just kind of like McKenzie, that maybe he is a gamer, and he's definitely going to be a guy I'm going to watch going forward.
Yeah, I mean, I think he shocked me. I didn't think he had a chance with Yarbrough and Mike Love. I thought he was a practice squad all the way, but I mean, at this point, I think that line's. I mean, Eddie Yarbrough had a good game too. He really did. He does kind of similar to McKenzie. Does play well when the lights are on, even after being kind of demoted. He had a great game yesterday. So didn't quite make my top 5, but it is going to be a deep defensive end battle, and one that. I mean, Daryl Johnson and Eddie Yarbrough, the 2 guys weren't talking about, might end up being that battle. So I think that's a pretty good. And for me, the next name I had written down on my list was Jaquan Johnson, the safety. 9 tackles, 1 pass defense, 1 tackle for loss. I thought he was all over the field. I really liked, kind of staying on the rookie path here. I think that there's a way to the roster on the safety position, even with Kirk Coleman on the roster. Sarah Neal kind of going to that nickel, kind of in that cornerback debate. I mean, he's really only going with Abraham Wallace. I mean, and Dean Marlowe are really his only competition. They can end up even keeping 5 here. They have in the past. Dean Marlowe also played well. Nice interception. Does seem to get his head in there too. But another really good battle between the 2 of them, and Jaquan Johnson, I thought, was one of the only bright spots on this 3rd team defense. When it finally started to thin out a little bit, the 2nd team was buzzing too. But when he was in the game late, I thought he was one of my favorite players. Really showing out, Jason. So I really liked what I saw from those late picks.
Yeah, he's certainly a guy that would have made my 5 had he not made yours.
Yeah.
It was just surprising. You didn't hear a ton about him either, and he got on the field, and they played him a lot, so they really gave him the opportunity to show it, and he definitely made them feel good about that opportunity, and probably where the safety position in the whole is right now. Next, I'm going to go with a guy that me and you don't particularly care for that much as a concept, but I am going to put him as my third guy just on the basis of him making the team, and that is Sonoris Perry.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, didn't look that good running the ball. Even his touchdown that he got, I don't think was in, and kind of
Jumped
the
like
goal
super
line.
late.
Yeah, it was not that good, but you know what? He caught that wheel route that was really good.
Yep.
We are hearing a lot about his pass catching in practice, and if it's going to be between him and Yeldon right now, with Yeldon's main contribution probably going to be in the receiving game. If Perry can give you some of that, and then obviously the upgrade in their eyes on the special teams, his chances of making the team are a lot more likely. Yeldon's got to get out of there because he got a full on fumble benching, and they might have told the running backs before the game, like, hey, you lose the ball. We had 32 turnovers last year. We can't lose the ball. You're not coming back in the game. We have 6 or 7 running backs here. We got a guy from England we brought in to play running back. Like, you're not getting back on the field. You're gonna have to try game 2. I don't know if that's what they said, but
Right.
Maybe
Maybe.
he didn't make his way back on, so he's got to fight his way out. And I don't think Perry did anything to really hurt himself there and looked capable as a receiver. And obviously, the special teams, you already had a leg up as far as that went. So I'll see how that goes going forward and just how much they try him out at running back.
Right.
And give him the opportunity to show if he's got any talent as far as that goes, and would make me and you feel a lot better about using that roster spot instead of having to take him off of the running back depth chart. So right now, I would say today he gets to be on the running back depth chart, not high up it, but I think that his likeliness of making the team got better yesterday.
Okay. 4 for 10 for 1 touchdown, 2.5 yards per carry was pitiful down in the goal line. Did have that one wheel route like you mentioned. 1 for 15 did look good doing it. TJ Yeldon had the 1 for 10. I thought he started off strong. Was of note, Yeldon did go in before him, so we'll see how that turns out as game 2 and 3. Did they give Bodine the benching though for like a worse, just throwing it over Barkley's head and going 40 yards down the other way? Like,
Yeah,
if
I
you're going
don't
to bench
remember
Yeldon, that's got to be an auto bench. I mean, that's a Tigger center. I mean, that's
I know
terrible.
he was out of the game pretty soon after, and then who knows
Okay.
with him still being in concussion protocol,
Right.
how that all adds
Okay.
up. So,
Right.
yeah, I know that Bodine didn't stay because I think they moved. Who did they move in there? There's somebody interesting like Boker. I don't want to say because I could be wrong. But I
Yeah.
thought when they had shown the offensive line graphic that Bodine had come out of the game very shortly after uh, that snap, which was
Okay.
very pitiful and loses you games. So that was my
Okay.
number 3, Sonoris Perry.
Yeah, for me, my number 3 was Matt Barkley. I have him written down here. I thought he played solid backup football. I mean, usually a second quarterback like Philip Walker comes in and is just terrible. Walker went 8 for 18 with an interception. Matt Barkley went in there 9 for 14, 126, a touchdown, 117 quarterback rating, commanding the offense. Would have scored another, probably at least no more points if it wasn't for a terrible Bodine. Once again, it was like 40 yards over his head after they were probably on about their 40. Maybe they were in Indy field position. So ended up being in Bill's field position when they took over. But I have Matt Barkley kind of commanding that offense, obviously being a crutch to Josh Allen. Nowhere in here am I saying that he's competing for the job. I started to see a little bit of that, not crazy amount, but just a little bit. But for a backup quarterback to be useful at $1.8 million on the salary and $2 million next year, still reasonably young, in his 20s, 28 this year. Can take quarterbacks a little bit. Once they get over that like 4 or 5 year threshold, I think they start to. There's like a better learning curve that they're like, okay, they've stayed in the league this long that they're going to start moving up the depth chart. And you kind of seen that if Matt Barkley's kind of stayed around just long enough to earn his final shot with the Bills last year after that really good Jets game. Was doing well in Cincinnati camp last year before his injury settlement and was signed right away. So it's nice to have that position locked up, that they're going to be zero movement at this year, bearing an injury. So I thought he's everything you can ask for from a backup quarterback. Do I want him playing more than like one game this year? No, but I'm not going to be too worried if he's got to go in there for a half of a football game, Jason.
Yeah, no, I think that's good. There were times that it uh, didn't look perfect because the line wasn't giving
Right.
their best performance during that. But overall, he came out with that game, had the nice touchdown pass. I thought it was overall a good game, and it makes me feel confident that we have one of the top half of the
Yeah,
league
that's fair.
backup quarterbacks. I think
Yep.
that you won't feel too worried, and we've certainly done worse with backup quarterbacks
Yeah.
than him. I'm gonna do a big cheaty here. I know we said 5 players, but I'm already gonna cheat on my fourth. I think the backup interior line, uh, I feel a little better about it in this game. White Teller was great.
Yep.
Just looking at the play counts, he played 48 snaps and 62% of the snaps in the game, which is number one on the team for this game. And we also had Ike Boker, who I thought made a great pancake block on a downfield on a decent run.
Yeah.
And also, even to, I don't want to take too many players. There were a lot of good players, though. I'm sure you can come up with 2 more. But I thought technically with Cody Ford in there at guard, maybe as a contingency plan, maybe as a starter, I thought looked really good and connected with the guys that he was next to. And that just makes me feel better at, in the interior where you had, Spain getting hurt, Morse, just coming back, Feliciano coming in and out, that we have replacements at those positions, Spencer Long, that we don't have to worry that much, and that there probably is a real competition there because Boker isn't guaranteed to make the team. In fact, it's, at best 50-50. It's going to be pretty interesting.
They like him.
Yeah, they like him, and his versatility is good. So I overall, I feel better. I'll name it as the guard position. I feel better about it.
Yeah, that's fine. I think the guard position, and that's without obviously Morse as center, but that does kick out Feliciano, so that's without Morse and Spencer Long too, right? So, I mean, two big pieces. That two obviously Morse might be your best lineman, and then Spencer Long's a top 7, 8 lineman. So 2 huge pieces in terms of depth that didn't even play, and that's Butker. Butker. I mean, he's right there now after the injury to Waddell. What they're going to do with him, I think he offers some position flexibility. White Teller was really good yesterday. So I think that's fair. You can sum that up because I probably, White Teller was on my list too. So he was he was fantastic yesterday. He was one of the best players in the game on the offensive line. Good. I mean, I think he's developed. And that tackle position too. I mean, I think there's some decent top end, but there's a little bit to look for in the back end of that roster. So getting into number 4 though for me, I really liked. I like Cam Phillips. I mean, I have him written down. We've talked about him on this show as maybe the number 1 practice squad guy they want. Once again, another name that I may keep over Ray McCloud. He caught a nice touchdown pass, came up with it in the end zone. Seems to be getting open, 3 targets. I like Cam Phillips. I don't really have an issue with him. So I really liked his play yesterday. I think that he was in early. I mean, that's a sign that he's really making a play for this thing. The biggest sign that you'll start to see, and I learned this, would be who's playing late in the third and fourth. Manny Lawson, late in the third and the fourth quarter. Cam Phillips isn't even in there at some point. So he was getting those second quarter snaps and into the first. So he's up there. I mean, one injury, the guy's on the team. So I like Cam Phillips. I think he's got good rapport with Barkley and even Allen. So watch out for a late surge, by Cam Phillips.
Yeah, I think that's good. I don't argue with that. Like the touchdown, he's obviously got some of the physical talent, maybe not the speed, but he's here for a second season for a reason. And I think he's got a shot of being somewhere, whether it's on the roster or the practice squad again.
That's right. I agree.
Player 5, I think he continues to hang around, and he does for a reason. That's Tyrell Dodson. Played a lot in this game. Showed pretty good range, was good in the run game. Really, everybody was, save for some stuff around the end. Chad Kelly running around, which, some secondary problems. I thought Tyrell Dodson was pretty good. I think he might fight with Stanford for a middle linebacker job. I still think Joseph could probably go back and forth between those two as well. But, he had some problems off the field, but they seem to be confident in what they heard about that. I'm not sure how settled it is at that point, but some guys just get cut after that, and they didn't want to do that. And for a UDFA to have an early scare like that, they're hanging on to him. And he was one of the few guys that they took as UDFAs, and I think he's shown a lot so far. And him and Corey Thompson are definitely guys that you might not have put in the top 6 at linebacker right away, but at the start of preseason. But Corey Thompson's firmly in there. He's probably in the top 4, and I think Tyrel Dodson is probably more makeable in this team than Deion Lacey and maybe even Joseph at this point.
Yeah, I think so. I think the funny part about that is that he's outside of whatever is going on personally. I don't know where that's at, but I think he's a stone cold lock for the practice squad. I think he's a guy they can put there, might not get plucked. They can call him up in an emergency. I think he's and he'll be up in the roster, obviously based on anything with the personal thing going on. But I think he's a stone cold lock. You're right. They really like this guy. They've gotten rid of other players over him. 21 years old, had a pretty good college career. So I think you're onto something. The Texas A&M undrafted free agent, I think, could find his way onto the roster this year through the practice squad first, based on the 911 call that he had to go against him this summer. So we'll see what happens with that. But I think as of right now, he is stone cold lock. Now, my 5th guy, I'm going off the cuff here, Jason. I think a lot of stuff's been talked about. A lot of stuff. I thought we did pretty good on these lists. We didn't just go Tremaine Edmonds and Ed Oliver.
Yeah, I avoided some higher name guys.
Yeah, I think that's fair. That's what this is supposed to be for. But I'm going to go off the cuff. You got any ideas where I'm going to go with this?
Are we going high up on the roster or lower? Because
we're going to go, low, I guess. Pretty low.
Corey Carter.
No,
I was hoping that we would get a Corey mention. I had to do it.
No, I can't get into punter. I'm going with Chase McLaughlin, the kicker.
You can't go punter, but you went kicker?
I went kicker. You know why? We're going to sit here and bash play, in front of, TJ Yeldon. Steven, I was going to miss an easy field goal. You can't miss that. You can't miss that. I'm going with Chase McLaughlin, who looked good. This is from practice at training camp. Looked good there. I was like, dude's making
kicks there.
Kids blasting 50-yard kicks as they keep moving back. I'm like, he didn't miss. I thought, for college career, had a pretty decent college career at Illinois. I remember we even looked it up while we were there. He had a whole segment in special teams practice. He was a pretty good kicker. An 80% field goal kicker with those hashes is pretty good. Didn't miss an extra point in college, which I know it's short, but not easy to do there with those lines and those fields. Was a pretty good kicker. Had a pretty good leg. I think he's on another. If he doesn't make the Bills and there's no place for him, I think he makes another roster. But I think he did things right. For an undrafted free agent, and he was, I think, 2nd or 3rd on most kicker lists. Pretty much 3rd.
Yeah, I don't think he was 1st, but yeah, he was a priority kicker free agent.
They pick the Bills is an interesting sign that Shane's working the phone. I don't know. That's interesting to me. I'm watching that closely though. Don't mean to go this route because we generally like him, but Stephen Hauschka saves $2 million by cutting him. More rollover money. And quite frankly, I thought McLaughlin did what he had to do yesterday. Had a lot of good, made his extra point, made his field goal from the same distance that Hauschka missed it, even a little bit longer. So I'm going to watch that. I'm going to watch that over the next 3 games. Maybe it's nothing. Okay. Maybe it's something, but maybe it's something. We'll see how he does in these preseason games, especially preseason game 4 and, when he's going to get more time. So I think that's something fair that I can track here. But I'm going on record saying I liked his game. I liked his training camp, and his college career was decent. So I'm watching out for this $400,000 kicker. And we can't. Hauschka was great, but we can't forget how bad he was down the stretch last year. It just didn't really matter. That's why it wasn't really talked about.
Yeah, I also kind of waved it off because he seemed pretty hurt.
Yeah,
but he's continuing to, if you're gonna doink a preseason, chip shot that you haven't missed a kick like that in 8 years or whatever they had said on the broadcast, I think he's gonna leave the door open, and I do think that Hauschka is gonna have to probably miss more kicks and continue to leave open the door even more for him to come in,
Mhm.
because sometimes it doesn't even matter what the backup kicker is doing in camp. Like you have a starting kicker. I don't think that's the case. I think he's like 80% definite, but I think that if he keeps missing kicks, you might have to make a decision. And what McLaughlin's trying to do right now is make it so they don't go out and get a different kicker, that they feel comfortable that if Hauschka does mess up enough,
Exactly.
that
Yep.
they can go to him instead of, trading for the guy who had the 59-yarder backup in preseason, or a veteran who got cut, or some guy waiting around. So I think he's there. I think it was a positive game for him. And yeah, we'll see.
Yeah, he missed. I mean, Hauschka in December missed 5 kicks,
That was
including an
crazy.
extra point. Wasn't very good. It was pretty 50% there in December, bringing his total average down to 78.6. That's getting into range of you're thinking about it. Yeah, we all wrote it off to an injury. So I think it's just worth monitoring. And if Hauschka even bounces back and looks great going forward, McLaughlin's trying to make another team. And it happens. Look at how bad like Chicago will sign him tomorrow if he continues to play well. So. Something to watch. And once again, if money plays a role, or I know they have cap space, but rolling over 25, 26, 27, 28 million is real nice when might be looking to lock up some of these guys like Emmons and Trey White. Maybe you like what you saw from your defensive end position, where you're going to have to go and give Shaq Lawson some money, at least a little bit of it if you like him. 7, 8, 6, 7, 8, $9 million depending. So we'll see what happens there at that position. I think it's really worth watching. And I mean, Hauschka will most likely be fine, but I think just someone to note toward the bottom of my list here that I liked what I saw. So we'll see if he goes out and misses 3 kicks next week against Carolina on the road on the end of this, or he goes and makes 3 kicks and we're going to talk about it again. So I think that's a name. And Jason, I want to talk about quickly some goats, some bad goats, I should say, because goat's so positive now. Some poor
When I
performances.
grew up, goat meant
bad.
you were a goat. It meant you were bad.
It
Heroes and
meant
goats.
you weren't good.
Yeah.
It's pretty bad sports connotation with goat.
I like making goat a positive thing, but we can go for it here. I like goats in general.
Okay, yeah, we'll transition it to positive, but so bad performances then.
Bad performances.
Bad performances. That's what I guess we'll just stick
If
with.
you
that.
ever watch YouTube and see a goat playing with a puppy, you will change your mind on goats.
Okay, and maybe that's why they did. Yeah, maybe that's why they did change their mind. I'm starting it off with Connor McDermott. I thought he just had a terrible game.
Yeah.
I don't think he looks good at all. That tackle depth behind the first 3, which is Nsekhe,
Never has.
Ford and Dawkins. He just looked bad. He got a quarterback killed. Tyree Jackson's needs him in there to make a throw. I just don't like the player too much, especially with the depth they have here. I'd rather try Butker, kick him out, or just really try someone new. Garrett McGinn if you have to. We saw him a little bit. I don't think it was very good. I even thought Jaron Jones had a play or two that I noticed. I mean,
DeAndre Wesley was fine too.
Yeah, I mean, I thought
too.
The backup lines were decent. I mean, better than I'm used to. I'm used to it just being a tire fire, Jason, in the second half. These guys just can't protect their quarterbacks. And there was a little bit of that just like on both sides. But I thought generally both offensive lines played pretty solid all the way around throughout, especially for backups. We're going to start there. Outside, I thought Indy's starting line struggled a little bit, but yeah, there's against a really good defensive front of the Bills. But I mean, I think Connor McDermott starts it off. He's my list. I'll just go down mine quick, then you can hit yours. Denzel Rice didn't like this play at all. Got crushed on a man. He was in man coverage, and they kind of motioned him to the other side, and then Chad, goes for the longest run of his life for 30-something yards around the edge there. I thought he was terrible in that. I thought he was terrible on a corner route. He just wasn't in great coverage. I mean, that pass interference play wasn't, I don't think, but still, I didn't like his positioning there.
They really picked on him as soon as they. It
was interesting.
Yeah, they really went at him, and he ended up making a couple good defensive plays, but overall,
they kept throwing at him.
Yeah, the balance was not good.
I actually thought that Denzel Rice had moved above Pitts in the unofficial depth chart, and Pitts was better. So that's of note. That I didn't think Denzel Rice was very good. So he's my number 2, and then number 3 has got to be Corey Bojorquez. He just wasn't good. His first kick was bad. Outkicked his coverage, shanked the second kick. His third kick was just average. Bringing his average down to a really poor game. And really, I thought it was his job to lose. And once again, it just kind of popped out of nowhere that I don't have anything against. Unlike Colton Schmidt, I don't have anything against Corey Bojorquez. He's a left-footed punter, offers some interesting ability to get that weird spin on the ball, and I can see why they'd like him. I think the Bills will be not happy to put him on waivers. Someone like New England will claim him because New England apparently wanted him on their practice squad. So he's got plenty of time still to rebound, but I thought he struggled at times last year too. He had good games, and he was really inconsistent for a punter. So whereas Colton Schmidt was just consistently poor, he was either like really good or really poor last year. So we'll see what happens in this punter battle, but I think Corey without a Y took the early lead.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't think
or without an E.
Yeah, I didn't think Corey with an E did anything last year to like guarantee himself a punter spot. And there is a competition there, but I really thought maybe they'd bring in. I mean, maybe they really like Corey Carter, but I thought they would bring in even a bigger name or just an actually established punter that they could.
They still might.
But I guess they have like both of them, and maybe one of them. And Corey Carter had a decent game yesterday, so maybe he's going to end up being the punter. But right now, I don't feel as good with Corey with an E. He didn't have a good game, and we are at least half of this podcast is very hypercritical of punters. So you will hear that talk. We will be discussing Puntapalooza in detail. I don't know if you had anybody else.
No, sorry. Yeah. I tried to keep it at 3. That was my initial 3. Pick one from special teams, one from defense, one from offense.
There really wasn't. I mean, those would be the exact 3 I would probably pick. There was a lot of positive performances. I'll just mention. I think one bad thing was EJ Gaines's availability because it's getting tighter on this roster, even with Denzel Rice not having a good game. I mean, you already have White, Wallace, Kevin Johnson, Taron Johnson, and probably Neal now pretty firmly at cornerback. I mean, those are guys that are on the team right now. And then I thought that Pitts had a good game yesterday, and they like him on special teams, play him there a lot. Cam Lewis was pretty good yesterday. I don't remember a lot from Ryan Lewis, but that's a really competitive position. And to basically miss training camp and you're already an injury prone player, and he's on a 1-year deal anyways. I don't know. I think his job got a lot harder to make the team yesterday just by not playing and not showing out. And I think they feel pretty comfortable with just about the whole secondary and how they performed in terms of the guys that are actually going to make the team. So
yeah,
I think
that's the availability is. I mean, he's got to be available. Dion Lacey, I didn't think played great. I mean, he's always been one of those backup line special teams guys, and I'd rather keep someone we mentioned earlier, like Tyrell Dodson, over him. But I noticed him just out of position many times. He just isn't a really good defender. He's made many rosters and actually played a little bit, but I think the days of him making this roster were over when you have O'Shawn Joseph and Tyrell Dodson, even Corey Thompson. That seems to be with the ones, which is interesting.
Yeah, well, something about Alexander wasn't bad either for your special team sort of guy. I think I would trust him more on defense than
Dion Lacey
at this point.
Here.
Don't love that. And he came out of the game late too, so
yeah, I think his days are numbered. Harrison Phillips late in the game was interesting. I mean, maybe just getting him reps, but obviously they're not going to cut him. But that's interesting.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, it's weird because that entire room is like guys that are older than him, except for Oliver. I mean, Phillips, even Robert Thomas and Pico are guys that have played on other teams before. I guess LT Walton even. So, to have a rotation, you still need to play guys like that. So, yeah, he had that play where he destroyed Chad Kelly like mercilessly, and maybe he was trying to prove a point there. That he belongs on the field. I still think that the 4D tackles are a pretty easy open and shut case at this point. But yeah, it is interesting that he's playing with them. Who was I going to say?
Goat? Bad goat.
Bad goat. you know what? Maybe I had talked so long that I forgot about it. Oh, you know what? I'll give a bad goat to me and to Christian Wade's age because I didn't
Okay.
realize he was 28. And that made me really sad after he made that run because it's kind of
That's a
like, what's
bummer.
the point? I was thinking, all right, this guy's 25 and he's making the jump, but 28 on a guy who played a very physical sport with no pads, besides occasionally those little helmets. He looked explosive. Obviously, they only played him the one play basically, or the one carry. Um, and he definitely looked like an athlete. He didn't have to do much on that play. It looked like he even kind of struggled to get the ball into position. I thought if he got hit on the first 3 yards of that play, he's probably fumbling. But clearly, you see the athletic potential there. He just blew away from people. He knew where to make the cut there, but it was pretty.
I want to get him some plays with the twos at least now. Like I
I
think
want to
he,
see it. Yeah, I mean that kind of athlete shoot, but at the same time, 28 years old for a guy that has never played the sport. I mean, what are we gonna get a guy who knows the sport by the time he's 30? Like
that was what I was
that.
going to say.
I mean, I would almost just say you're gonna since we get like this for a year with him or whatever, like go be Andre Roberts understudy, and because that's going to be the closest thing you have to rugby is just getting around people, yeah, on a big field and see what you can do there. Because I mean, you could see with that breakaway speed and the cut that he made that maybe that's something that he would be a natural at. And I think they had the 49ers had that rugby guy, Jared Haynes, I believe, that they had tried him at punt returner immediately because that was what you would see as the translatable part of that
Mhm.
sport as somebody who knows a limited amount of stuff about rugby. uh, I think that might be a good thing. Yeah, man, even if you taught him to play defense or something, and just thought, all right, this is going to be a year or two process, but to have him play at the position with the shortest career where your athleticism and not losing it at a late age is probably the most important. I had the elation of seeing that and seeing him with his teammates, and then got a little sad when I was like, oh, he's 28. And you know what? That's not Christian Wade's bad. That's my bad. I didn't think I was going to have to know that fact and kind of assumed that he was just a little older than a normal rookie. And I was wrong. So I'm having a tough time seeing what the future is going to be with him. But I mean, good athlete and good play, man.
And I guess live on air, the Bills have made a trade. So that's interesting.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, did we trade away a player?
Yes.
Oh, let me guess. Um, oh, we traded away. Is it a big trade?
No. We traded Eli Harold to the Eagles for Ryan Bates, offensive lineman.
Okay.
So
Bates is a tackle, I believe.
yes. Yeah.
Okay. Um, yeah, I think that's necessary. Again, and I said it during the game.
A college free
I
agent this year tackle, just so you know, from Penn State.
Okay. Um, maybe I heard him just from watching Big Ten or whatever. Yeah, I mean, Harold definitely didn't seem like he had any route of making this team whatsoever. He's always been kind of a tweener between, a defensive end and stand-up linebacker without a ton of pass rush ability, kind of are settled at those positions. So I can see that. And yeah, I think we needed competition because even though I think we probably have the 8 or 9 guys that are going to make this team on offensive linemen, I honestly don't. I would just bring in guys that even have a chance of making the team or making practice squads. And right now, I just don't even see a reason to have Bodine or McDermott in this camp right now. We cut him, let him. There's probably 20 teams that have terrible tackles and centers and guards that would pick him up. Arizona and go pick him up in a second, or Miami or something.
Mm-hmm.
Let him go get another job and be terrible on their team
Yep.
because they're just not competing for this right now. So you might as well just cut the inevitable and get a look at more guys. So that's how I feel, and maybe this is the start of it. Get rid of a guy that really didn't have a chance of making this team in a position of strength, and go and see if we can have somebody compete and maybe win a swing tackle role or get on the practice squad.
Yeah, and according to Joe Marino from Locked On Bills, best trait's mobility, worst trait is his length. Versatility, played both left and right tackle at Penn State. I hope he can snap because his profile is best at playing center. Don't like the idea of power being stacked on top of him being top of him more frequently at guard.
So
Also
he
doesn't
is short-armed and not strong.
right. According to Balance, reasonably controlled considering he was miscast as an offensive tackle. Narrow, lean build with limited length, presents restrictions, light on his feet, and moves laterally extremely well. It was surprising to see Bates film and see him play outside at tackle. His narrow frame and lack of length presents a world of restrictions on the outside, which often showed up on tape when he struggled to keep pass rushers away. Bates does feature appealing mobility and offers a positional blocker, making a move to center, one that is favorable to maximize his potential. Bate is a developmental prospect that could make an impact at the next level with a position switch and adding playing strength as a day 3 pick. So at least had a draftable grade, didn't have too much great things to say there. Did play most tackle, but tackle, center, guard possibility here, Jason. So you could see the potential here. And to make a trade for UDFA, they probably tried to sign. That means to me, he might have picked Philly for some reason. The Bills player personnel said, let's go after him in a pretty player for player trade. I think that screams practice squad, Jason. I think that screams like Dodson, we're going to want this guy to make our 10-man practice squad. I think that, to me, that's almost like, unless he's really bad, I think that's a lock where they're going to try him out of different positions and be able to call him up in a pinch. So that's kind of my idea. Harold made a couple of good plays yesterday getting into the backfield, just didn't finish. So maybe flashed a little bit to Philly. So he's going to go over there. They're training for a veteran too. So if he makes the roster, he's going to have to carry a little bit more cap than an undrafted free agent would. But, they're obviously pretty tight on the defensive end position with Sweat, Brandon Graham, Derek Barnett, Vinny Curry, Sharif Miller. They drafted him in the 4th. So interesting move by them. Might see him as a linebacker too. So I'm fine with it. I think it adds practice squad tackle with someone that with some potential, tackle, guard, center, that a lot of these names don't have practice squad eligibilities except Garrett McGinn, really. Connor McDermott might. So we'll see. So we'll see what happens here with Ryan Bates. But
why not?
Maybe they were targeting him in the 7th round and went Johnson. So yeah. We'll see where that goes. But that was cool live on air. I've had that happen before. Jason, just real quickly on the roster front, I wanted to talk about how much better it is this time this year compared to last year. You had guys like Dukas and Bodine as main points. I mean, offensive line, you're only going to keep one in Dawkins. DB, you're a lot deeper at DB this year to me, I think you upgraded third safety. I think you might have upgraded most of corner. Another year of Levi Wallace is an upgrade where he didn't even make the roster. Not to mention good depth guys in Gaines and Johnson. Really, even Cam Lewis is fighting for a position. Siren Neal's making the transition. So DB stronger. You're getting, healthy defensive ends in here. More developing at the linebacker position. Receivers just worlds better. I mean, you have guys that definitely would have made the team last year, like McKenzie would have been a lock. McLeod, Cam Phillips. These guys are all fighting for roster positions now. Just in the top end of those positions are good. Interior offensive linemen's really good. Jason, so what's your kind of a point on where the team is after preseason game 1 this year, and this team after preseason game 1 last year?
Yeah, I mean, we were on a podcast this time last year, and we had to go through this whole thing. And, yeah, we had to do a lot of talking ourselves into it. And we, as fans, sometimes we do that a little bit, maybe more than an outsider would. But, the offensive line, to say that we were going to have a good offensive line, and I really didn't think we were going to, but you really had to convince yourself into guys that had a pretty decent history of not being good. I mean, Bodine was, slotted in as a guy that was probably going to win the center job and had like 3 straight years of terrible play. The AFC North was pretty sad to see him come out of the division. Guys like that, Dukas again and Miller, guys that you knew weren't very good. Receiver, we really didn't even have a way of pretending that they were going to be good because Andre Holmes was still going to be on the team and Kelvin Benjamin and all of that. So the reason those things are better is because we addressed them in a real way and signed players and signed guys that have started for teams and guys who have had some success like Morse. I think Beasley can step it up, and then John Brown's had a 1,000-yard season before, and Roberts was a Pro Bowl level kick returner. Those are guys that if you address it and you sign all those free agents and you draft towards them, like that's how you get optimistic about it. Not signing bottom of the barrel guys or sticking on to guys that already had a history of not very much success. So
Right.
you get better by addressing things. And then the other position I think is cornerback just was already decent. We kind of looked into Wallace, and then we just continued to get better. Taron Johnson was a good draft pick, and then to sign Kevin Johnson and EJ Gaines, I mean, two potential number two guys. I think that turns that into a strength. I think two positions that we really haven't addressed much lately are linebacker, which I think so far the early returns are probably better than we thought they would be. Just between, I think maybe looking into or scouting well and Corey Thompson, I think he's going to end up being good. Addressing it with Joseph, with Dodson, with whatever, I think that's a little better. And then tight end is a big mystery depending on who's healthy. I think it's probably not going to be one of our stronger positions, but even with that, Tommy Sweeney looks like a guy that's going to be on the team and possibly successful. So even with your Nate Beckers and Kyle Carters, I think have looked better than people thought. So maybe that's a weak position, but you're not going to be strong at everything. So I think those are probably the differences from last year. Everything else that was solid last year is going to continue to be, and hopefully the young players like Edmonds and Allen continue to grow.
Yeah, and I want to do this next week too. Real quickly, this time last year, Marcus Murphy 7 for 35 and a touchdown. Keith Ford 5 for 20. Tavares Cadet 2 for 4. Chris Ivory 1 for -1. That was your running room, beside LaShawn McCoy, who also didn't play this week. Mm-hmm. Receivers: Brandon Riley 1 for 59. Kelvin Benjamin 4 for 58. McLeod 3 for 50. Chris Ivory 1 for 29, Kyrie Lee 1 for 27, Rod Schreeder 1 for 19, Jeremy Curley, who was Savior Jeremy Curley 1 for 16, Kalen Clay 2 for 12, Andre Holmes 1 for 10, Logan Thomas 1 for 2. Man, I mean that's that just right there in your skill position. We already know what happened to the quarterback position, and then really limited on even on the defense. You had Xavier Woodson Luster lead the game with 4 tackles and playing time. Lafayette Pitts is in here. LJ McCrae's, Matt Boson's, Raphael Bush's, Ricky Hatley, Terrence Fide's. These are the guys playing this time last year. Marquavius Lewis, Breon Borders. Breon Borders, man.
I had hope for him.
Yeah, me too. I didn't even realize he was this early last year. I thought he was many years ago. Keenan Robinson. Wow. Okay. So there's that.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of those guys, a lot of guys on this team or this 90 could sound like that in a year, but at the same time, yeah, I think it's a different, I don't think, we're not rolling with the McCrae brothers as possibilities of making the team, or, just a lot of those guys were guys who are like, well, maybe they'll make it. And there really just aren't a lot of spots. And, the competition for 50 through 53 is just a lot higher than it was before. And I don't know. I think it's something to feel good about.
Taiwan Jones was your returner. I mean, the special teams is bad. Corey Carter plenty outplayed Colton Schmidt, maybe why he's on the roster last year. Colton Schmidt's 1 for 38. Corey Carter 2 for 99 for 49 average. So there's boom and punts out there, so that might be on his roster. But that's fun. I want to do this a little bit next week. Maybe I'll do a little more research to compare the games too, so there's some context behind some of this. But the Bills roster is plenty better. I just think it is a really deep unit, and I mean some of those names on there, and that wasn't even getting into how bad the O-line was either. So lots can be taken out of that, but man, Jason, it was a sure action-packed episode talking about the game, breaking down the rosters. Action-packed again. That's what we bring you. As always, please check out Cover One. Check out their premium content so that you can get the shows pushed to your phone, as well as exclusive content and a Slack group. So check that out. That is the premium content on cover1.net. Once again, this is the Kevin and Jason show. Yep. The Kevin and Jason show.
At Kevin Jason Show is our Twitter handle that we both use. I am at Jason Tutha. You probably already follow Kevin, but he's at Kevin Masseri, right?
Yeah, that's all. Simple.
And then also on the podcast feeds on your iTunes, I use Overcast, which is a great service. Also on Spotify, you can cover us at Kevin and Jason Show. You'll see it. It's in the red and blue.
Yeah.
You can also follow Cover One, which you also get the podcast with Greg Thompson and Aaron Quinn and Eric occasionally, and get all of their content. So you get the whole group with that feed as well as us. They're both great options to take, but definitely subscribe so that when we release an episode, you get to see it right away. You don't have to go through your browser. You don't have to click on the Twitter link and figure out how you're going to listen to it. It goes right to your phone. Yeah, I think that's the best way to do it. I just want to get that out there because we forgot that last week.
Yeah, perfect. And from the Kevin and Jason Show presented by Cover One, I'm Kevin, and that's Jason.
Thanks, guys.